Have you noticed this? You get new glasses, feel like you can see in high def, and then a year or two later, the world is just a little bit blurrier again? It's this super frustrating and honestly super common experience. But what if it's not just a fact of life? What if there's something else going on? Well, let's get into what's really happening with our eyes.
I mean, that's the big question, right? It really feels like we're in the middle of this silent epidemic of bad vision. It seems like more and more of us, and especially our kids, are having a hard time seeing things that are far away. This isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a huge global shift in human health. So, what is going on?
Just look at these numbers. The speed of this change is kind of mind-blowing. If you go back to the 70s, maybe a quarter of the population in some places was nearsighted. Fast forward to the 2000s, and that number shoots up to over 40%. And now, in some parts of East Asia, a staggering 80% of young people are nearsighted. 80! No way that's a coincidence. Something is happening, and it's happening fast.
Okay, so to figure out what's going on, we first need to get a handle on what the problem actually is. We're talking about a very specific condition with a very real physical cause. So, nearsightedness, or myopia, isn't just about your vision being a bit fuzzy. It's literally about the physical shape of your eyeball. You see, for perfect vision, light has to focus perfectly on the retina at the back of your eye. But in a myopic eye, the eyeball itself has stretched out. It's grown a little too long. And because of that, light focuses in front of the retina, and that's what makes everything in the distance look all blurry. And here is the real puzzle. Biologically, our eyes are programmed to stop growing. Usually around age 6, they hit the perfect length for sharp vision, and they just stop. But for millions and millions of people today, that stop growing signal is either not being sent or not being received. The eye just keeps on elongating. So what on earth broke that system?
All right, so if you ask anyone what's causing this, you're going to hear two things over and over again. It's either our genes, it runs in the family, or it's all the screens we're glued to. So let's put these two usual suspects under the microscope.
Now, don't get me wrong, genes absolutely play a part. If one of your parents is nearsighted, your risk doubles. If both are, your risk is 5 times higher. So case closed, right? It's just bad genes? Well, hang on. Think back to that chart we saw. This whole explosion in nearsightedness happened in just a couple of generations. Our genes just don't change that fast. Widespread genetic shifts take thousands of years, not 50.
And this quote just nails it. You can think of it like this. Our genes might load the gun, predisposing some of us to this condition. But it's our modern environment that's actually pulling the trigger. There's something in our lifestyle that is flipping a switch in our biology.
Which brings us to suspect number 2, screens. The public enemy number 1 for our eyes. We were all told as kids, don't sit too close to the TV. And now we spend hours a day staring at phones and laptops that are barely a foot from our faces. And yeah, the timeline fits perfectly. The rise of screens seems to perfectly track the rise of myopia. It feels like an open and shut case.
But here's where the plot thickens. The old idea was that all that close-up work strained our eyes, and so they adapted by growing longer. But the evidence for that theory is actually pretty weak. So what if the screen isn't the real villain? What if it's just a clue, pointing to a much bigger and surprisingly simple problem? And that brings us to the real culprits. And I'm telling you, it's something most of us have never even thought about. The problem isn't what we're looking at. It's all about the world we're looking from. Let me put it this way. The issue isn't the presence of a screen or a book or whatever else is in front of your face. The issue is the absence of something critical from our environment. Our eyes are being starved of a crucial signal they've evolved to expect for millions of years. And that signal is bright, natural light. To really get the scale of what we're missing, we have to talk about something called lux. It's just a way to measure the intensity of light. Now, on a bright, sunny day, the light outside can hit 100,000 lux. That's an incredibly powerful biological signal washing over us. Now compare that to a pretty well-lit room indoors. Your office, your living room, a classroom. You're probably only getting about 200 lux, maybe 500 if it's really bright. That's not just a little different. We are literally spending our lives in environments that are hundreds, if not 1,000 times dimmer than what our bodies are built for. And our eyes are paying the price. So why in the world does this huge difference in brightness matter so much? Well, the science behind it is actually beautiful and simple, and it involves a chemical messenger you've definitely heard of.
Okay, so check this out. When that bright, full-spectrum sunlight hits the retina at the back of your eye, it triggers the retina to start producing dopamine. Yep, the same feel-good neurotransmitter. And right there in the eye, that dopamine acts as a signal. It basically tells the eyeball, hey, we're the right size now, you can stop growing. It's the biological off switch that ensures our eye develops perfectly and then just holds steady.
So you can see the problem, right? When we spend most of our time indoors, especially as kids, when our eyes are developing, our retinas just don't get enough of that bright light signal, so they don't produce enough dopamine. And without enough dopamine, the eye never gets that critical message to stop growing. So it just keeps going, stretching past the point of clear vision and right into myopia.
Okay, so I know this all sounds pretty serious, but here's the really amazing part. Because the cause is so simple, the solution is also incredibly simple. So let's talk about what the science says is the absolute best way to protect our sight.
We don't need some fancy new technology or some expensive, complicated surgery. The number one way to prevent this from happening is something every single one of us can do, and it costs absolutely nothing.
And this isn't just a theory. We have real-world proof. In Taiwan, they were facing an absolute crisis of nearsightedness in their kids. So what did they do? The government mandated that all school children had to spend 2 hours outside every single day. And the results were amazing. It didn't cure kids who were already nearsighted, but it dramatically slowed down the rate of new kids developing the problem. It just works.
And this is so important because it completely reframes the conversation. The villain isn't the screen. The villain is the dim room. So the solution isn't to ban our kids from technology. It's to change the environment they use it in. Let them play video games on a tablet, but have them do it on the back porch. Let them read a book, but do it under a tree in the backyard. It's about getting that dose of bright outdoor light.
Of course, people always ask, well, what about other fixes? And it's a great question. Things like laser surgery are incredible, but they only reshape the surface of your eye, the cornea. They don't actually fix the fact that your eyeball is too long, which still carries other health risks. And then you've got special contact lenses or eye exercises. They can sometimes help slow things down, but again, they're not reversing the underlying issue. And supplements are great for overall eye health, but they can't physically shrink your eyeball back to size.
Now, with that said, it's still a really good idea to support the health of your retina, especially if you're already very nearsighted. Major studies, like the REDS2 study, have shown that this specific blend of vitamins and minerals can really help protect the retina as we age. So think of this as giving your eyes the best possible nutrition. But just remember, this is all about support and maintenance, not a cure for the root problem. So let's end with this idea. We're always looking for complex, expensive solutions to our health problems. We want the new surgery, the miracle pill. But what if, for this massive global epidemic of failing eyesight, the most powerful, most scientifically proven therapy is just a free walk in the park, letting our eyes get the one thing they've been missing all along: sunlight.